Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly,
What if everything you think you know about Caitlin Clark's rookie season is a carefully constructed lie? We see the sold-out arenas, the record-breaking ratings, and the non-stop drama. But the biggest story in the entire WNBA isn't playing out in front of the cameras. It's a story of a forced resignation, a bitter power struggle, and a massive cover-up designed to protect the league's new golden goose. And the most trusted voice in sports, Stephen A. Smith, just accidentally confirmed the whole damn thing. The sports world is reeling from a revelation that has been kept tightly under wraps. A secret so explosive it threatens to unravel the entire narrative surrounding the WNBA's brightest star. This isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about what happens when a billion-dollar media machine decides to bury the truth. Insiders are now scrambling to control the narrative. But the cat is out of the bag, and the details are far more shocking than anyone could have possibly imagined. This story begins not on the court, but with a whisper, a leak that has exposed the rotten foundation upon which Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever era is being built. For months, there have been quiet murmurs and hushed conversations in the back channels of sports journalism. But without a credible source, it was all just speculation. That is until now. We are living in an age of manufactured sports narratives where leagues and their media partners work in tandem to craft storylines that sell. They build heroes and villains. They create drama and they feed it to the public as authentic competition. But every so often, the truth slips through the cracks, revealing the ugly machinery grinding away behind the curtain. This is one of those moments. The confirmation didn't come from a prepared statement on First Take or a polished segment on ESPN. According to sources deep within the industry, it was a comment from Stephen A. Smith. A moment of unguarded honesty that blew the lid clean off the entire scandal. He allegedly revealed that Stephanie White's departure from Indiana wasn't a mutual decision or a simple career move. It was a forced resignation, a direct result of the chaos and conflict stemming from the arrival of Caitlin Clark. The report suggests that Stephen A. confirmed that the pressure from the top, from the league itself, became so immense that White was left with absolutely no choice. She was apparently handed an ultimatum. Fall in line with the new Caitlin-centric world order or get out. This wasn't just a coaching change. It was a coup, a hostile takeover of a franchise's very soul. The leak, said to have occurred during a pre-production meeting or a hot mic situation, sent immediate shockwaves through the executive levels of the WNBA and ESPN, with frantic calls being made to contain the fallout. But it was already too late. Stephen A. Smith isn't just any pundit. He is the face of sports media, a man whose voice carries more weight than commissioners and owners combined. His confirmation, even if never broadcast to the world, was out, and it paints a deeply troubling picture of a league willing to sacrifice its own to protect its investment. This isn't just a rumor anymore. It's a confirmed crisis. To understand the full gravity of this, you have to understand who Stephanie White really is. She isn't just some random coach passing through Indiana. She's royalty. A former Purdue superstar, Indiana's Miss Basketball, a national champion player, and a foundational pillar of the Indiana Fever. White represents the very soul of Indiana basketball. Her DNA is intertwined with the history of the sport in that state. Her coaching philosophy was always about toughness, team chemistry, and a system where no single player was ever bigger than the team itself. She came from the old school of hard-nosed, defense-first basketball where you earned your stripes through grit and dedication, not through marketing deals. She was respected, she was an innovator, and she knew exactly how to build a winning culture from the ground up, having led the Fever to the WNBA Finals in 2015. Her history with the Fever is deep and storied, and her return was seen by many as a homecoming, a genuine chance to restore the franchise to its former glory. She was the architect, the steady hand meant to guide the team into a bold new era. Then came Caitlin Clark, a talent so monumental, so commercially powerful that she didn't just join the team. She became the team, the brand, the entire organization's singular reason for existing. The dynamic shifted overnight. The long-term vision White had been carefully building, based on methodical growth and team-first principles, was suddenly expected to take a back seat to the immediate, high-stakes pressure of the Caitlin Clark show. This set the stage for a brutal collision between two powerful forces: the respected veteran coach dedicated to team integrity and the generational talent whose arrival represented a full corporate takeover of the locker room. The conflict was inevitable. A clash between the old ways of building a true champion and the new reality of superstar-driven media empires. And what happened next would expose the dark underbelly of professional sports, revealing that in the modern WNBA, culture comes in a distant second to cold, hard cash. The Caitlin Clark effect has been celebrated as the savior of the WNBA, and in many ways, it genuinely is. Ticket sales have skyrocketed. Viewership is shattering records, and mainstream media attention is at an all-time historic high. Clark is a walking stimulus package for the entire league. But behind the curtain of this financial fairy tale, her arrival acted like a fault line, exposing the deep structural cracks within the Indiana Fever organization. The pressure was utterly unprecedented. Every single game became a national spectacle. Every possession scrutinized, every win and loss magnified 1,000 times over. This suffocating environment created a sharp schism within the organization. On one side, you had the basketball purists like Stephanie White, those who believed in a gradual, sustainable process of building a championship contender around Clark, integrating her into a balanced team designed to protect her and foster genuine growth. On the other side, you had the business interests, the front office, the marketing department, and allegedly direct pressure from the league itself, who saw nothing but dollar signs. They wanted the Caitlin Clark show front and center every single night, even if it meant deliberately sacrificing team chemistry and long-term development. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was a fundamental war over the team's very identity. Was the Indiana Fever a basketball team or simply a marketing vehicle built around its newest star? The pressure to win immediately, combined with the relentless demand to make Clark the sole focus of the entire offense, created a toxic environment where sound basketball strategy was constantly and painfully at odds with commercial expectations. The cracks were beginning to show, and the entire foundation was threatening to collapse. Veteran players reportedly felt marginalized. Their roles diminished overnight as the entire organization pivoted to orbit around a single rookie. The unspoken resentment began to quietly build, creating a deeply fractured locker room. Whispers from behind the scenes paint a vivid picture of a team in serious turmoil. The alleged power struggle between Stephanie White and the front office wasn't just about abstract philosophies. It played out in very real, very tense, and very personal ways. Sources claimed that White repeatedly clashed with management over the team's direction. She reportedly fought hard for an offense that was more balanced, one that would alleviate some of the immense pressure on Clark and foster genuine team chemistry. She argued that a heliocentric offense, while great for individual stats and highlight reels, was not a sustainable path to a championship and would ultimately lead to burnout and deep-seated resentment throughout the roster. But her pleas were apparently ignored, dismissed as old-fashioned thinking that no longer aligned with the new, lucrative reality the organization had fully embraced. The directive from above was crystal clear. The ball was to be in Caitlin's hands. The offense was to run entirely through her, and the marketing was to be completely and exclusively all about her. This created a palpable, suffocating tension throughout the organization. Players who were once key cogs in the system were suddenly relegated to supporting roles overnight. Their development stunted, their contributions minimized, all to serve the larger-than-life narrative of a single player. White reportedly saw this as a direct betrayal of her core coaching principles and a profound disservice to every other athlete on her roster. The conflict escalated to a point where strategy sessions became outright battlegrounds. White would carefully design plays to get other players meaningfully involved, only to face immediate pushback from executives who wanted more isolation plays for Clark. Manufactured moments engineered specifically for social media clips. It was a brutal power struggle for the very soul of the team. Stephanie White was trying to build a fortress, but the organization was demanding she run a circus. It became painfully clear that there were two completely competing visions for the team's future, and only one of them could survive. The organization was making its choice, and it wasn't siding with the coach who had dedicated her entire career to the franchise. But the final explosive breaking point would happen not in a meeting room, but in the harsh, unforgiving spotlight of the court itself, becoming the ultimate flashpoint for the entire internal war. The narrative of Caitlin Clark being targeted by opponents, subjected to cheap shots, and relentlessly overly aggressive play wasn't just a media talking point. It became the flashpoint that ignited the entire internal war. This is where the story takes a genuinely shocking and unexpected turn. The common assumption is that any coach would be absolutely furious and demand more protection for their star player. But the internal conflict was far more complex and deeply nuanced than that simple assumption. According to the whispers circulating within the industry, Stephen A. Smith allegedly confirmed that the disagreement was specifically about how to respond to the escalating physicality being directed at Clark. One side of the story suggests that White was completely appalled by the league's continued inaction and demanded that the front office and the league itself take a far stronger and more vocal public stance to protect their star. She wanted the organization to fight back, to publicly condemn the hits Clark was absorbing, to use its considerable platform to demand better officiating and real accountability. When they instead prioritized a passive, squeaky clean image over genuine player safety, fearing any confrontation would make the league appear weak and chaotic, White saw it as the ultimate, unforgivable betrayal. However, a more controversial and arguably far more compelling rumor suggests the complete opposite. This theory posits that White, a true believer in old-school Indiana basketball toughness, wanted her team to respond directly on the court. Not with illegal plays, but with a fiercer, more physically intimidating brand of basketball that would send an unmistakable message to the rest of the league. If you come for our star, you are coming for every single one of us. This approach would involve harder screens, more physical box-outs, and a general no-layups mentality that made opponents fully aware they could not push the fever around without consequences. This old-school solution was allegedly shut down immediately by an organization utterly terrified of the Indiana Fever being labeled as aggressive or dangerous, a label that would permanently tarnish the pristine, family-friendly image of their golden goose, Caitlin Clark. They were selling a carefully crafted product, and that product absolutely could not be associated with on-court aggression of any kind. Either way, this was the undeniable breaking point. Whether she was fighting for more institutional protection or for the fundamental right to fight back the old-fashioned way, Stephanie White found herself completely and irreconcilably at odds with the organization's rigid corporate agenda. They were far more concerned with carefully managing public relations than with addressing the brutal reality of the game being played on the floor. Her position became fully untenable. She was a coach who was no longer permitted to actually coach. A leader who was no longer allowed to truly lead. Her resignation wasn't merely a professional decision. It was a protest, a powerful, principled stand against a system that had consciously chosen marketing over integrity and polished image over genuine substance. If a story this massive, involving one of the most respected coaches in the sport and its absolute biggest star, was true, why isn't it the #1 headline dominating every major network? The answer is as simple as it is deeply sinister: a deliberate, coordinated media cover-up at the highest levels. The WNBA, along with its major media partners, has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into carefully cultivating the Caitlin Clark brand. She is the undisputed face of the league's future, the engine driving its unprecedented and historic growth. A scandal of this magnitude, one that suggests their biggest stars team is a toxic organizational mess and that a legendary coach was forcibly pushed out, would be absolutely catastrophic for business. So the order allegedly came down from the very top. Bury the story. Control the narrative at all costs. Anyone who dares to speak out is to be immediately silenced. Think carefully about it. Have you seen any truly in-depth, substantive reports on this across major sports broadcasts? Any hard-hitting, serious journalistic investigations digging into the real story? No. Instead, what you get are carefully curated highlight packages and deliberately surface-level analysis designed to keep you comfortable and completely in the dark. The media is fully complicit in protecting their massive financial investment. This is the world of access journalism, where reporters who dare to ask the tough questions suddenly find their press credentials revoked, their calls left completely unanswered, and their access to the team entirely cut off without explanation. The league and its broadcast partners share a deeply symbiotic relationship. It is simply not in any network's financial interest to damage the very product they pay billions of dollars to put on air. They are not just reporting on the Caitlin Clark story. They are active, willing participants in writing it from the ground up. Stephen A. Smith's alleged leak is so explosive precisely because it breaks directly through this carefully constructed wall of silence. He is one of the very few figures in all of sports media with enough power, enough influence, and enough credibility to say something that simply cannot be easily erased or dismissed. The league and its partners are now in full damage control mode, likely working frantically behind the scenes to discredit the rumors and ensure the sanitized, polished version of the story is the only one the general public ever gets to hear. This is the dark and ugly side of modern sports media, where the manufactured narrative is always more important than the raw truth. And a billion-dollar brand is considered worth far more than a coach's entire career and the fundamental integrity of the game itself. We are being actively sold a fairy tale, and the league is doing absolutely everything within its considerable power to make sure no one ever finds or reads the missing pages. So we are left sitting with this explosive and deeply uncomfortable reality. A story painstakingly pieced together from insider whispers and a bombshell confirmation from the single biggest voice in all of sports. The carefully fed narrative of a seamless transition and a team united and energized behind its new superstar appears to be a complete and total fabrication. The truth, as it has now been revealed, points unmistakably to a franchise in genuine crisis. A deeply respected coach forcibly pushed out for refusing to bow to relentless corporate pressure, and a league so utterly desperate to protect its golden goose that it orchestrated a media-wide blackout specifically designed to hide the entire scandal from public view. This whole devastating saga forces every honest observer to ask some deeply uncomfortable and long overdue questions. Is the WNBA truly willing to sacrifice veteran coaches, hard-earned team chemistry, and the very integrity of its competition, all for the sake of keeping the Caitlin Clark marketing machine running at full speed? It seems increasingly clear that the league isn't just selling tickets anymore. It's selling a perfectly polished, meticulously manufactured story. And any character who doesn't neatly fit the carefully written script is simply written out of the show without hesitation. The story of Stephanie White's resignation isn't just a footnote buried in the back pages of sports history. It's a chilling and unmistakable warning sign. It reveals a league standing at a genuinely dangerous crossroads, one where the once clear line between sport and pure entertainment has been completely and perhaps permanently erased. The biggest question that still remains is this: what does all of this ultimately mean for the future of Caitlin Clark herself? If her entire rookie season is built upon a crumbling foundation of internal conflict and deliberate corporate deceit, how long can that foundation possibly hold before it all comes catastrophically crashing down? We are witnessing what appears to be the biggest and most dramatic boom in the entire history of women's professional basketball. But if it is all being propped up by a carefully constructed lie, the entire spectacular edifice might be nothing more than a fragile house of cards, waiting helplessly for the next powerful gust of truth to blow it all completely away. Is this truly the future of professional sports? A pre-packaged corporate-approved drama where actual outcomes are always secondary to the carefully controlled narrative. The silence from the league is absolutely deafening, and it tells us far more than any polished press release ever possibly could. If everything you think you know about what is out there regarding Caitlin Clark is actually far uglier than any carefully constructed lie could ever contain, we see the sold-out arenas, the record-breaking ratings, and the non-stop encore drama. But the biggest story in the entire WNBA isn't happening anywhere in front of the cameras. It's a story of a forced resignation, a bitter and ruthless power struggle, and a massive cover-up engineered specifically to protect the league's new golden goose. And the most trusted and recognizable voice in all of sports, Stephen A. Smith, just accidentally confirmed the whole damn thing. The sports world is actively reeling from a revelation that has been carefully and deliberately kept tightly under wraps. A secret so explosively powerful that it threatens to completely unravel the entire narrative surrounding the WNBA's brightest and most commercially valuable star. This isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about what truly happens when a billion-dollar media machine coldly and deliberately decides to bury the truth at all costs. Insiders are now frantically scrambling to control the narrative before it fully escapes their grip. But the cat is irrevocably out of the bag, and the details emerging are far more shocking and disturbing than anyone could have ever possibly imagined. This story begins not on the hardwood court, but with a whisper, a carefully placed leak that has now fully exposed the rotten and unstable foundation upon which Caitlin Clark's entire Indiana Fever era is being hastily constructed. For months, there have been quiet murmurs and hushed, guarded conversations circulating through the back channels of sports journalism. But without a truly credible and verifiable source, it was all still just speculation swirling in the dark. That is, until now. We are living in a dangerous age of manufactured sports narratives, where powerful leagues and their deep-pocketed media partners work in constant, coordinated tandem to craft compelling storylines specifically designed to sell. They build heroes and they create villains. They manufacture drama and they serve it up to an unsuspecting public as if it were authentic, unscripted competition. But every so often, the cold and inconvenient truth slips through the carefully maintained cracks, revealing the grinding, ruthless machinery operating just out of sight behind the curtain. This is undeniably one of those rare and defining moments. The confirmation did not come from a carefully prepared statement on First Take or from a slickly produced and fully vetted segment on ESPN. According to sources operating deep within the industry, it came from a completely unguarded comment made by Stephen A. Smith himself. A single unscripted moment of raw and unfiltered honesty that blew the lid entirely off the whole explosive scandal. He allegedly revealed in no uncertain terms that Stephanie White's departure from Indiana was never a mutual decision or a routine career move. It was a forced resignation,